first up are Mr. Martin. The question is, what are your top priorities for the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office, and how do you plan to address and implement them?
So top priorities would be to slow down crime, put a damper on the drugs, go after the head of the snake, which is one of the heads of the Washington Parish that's bringing in the drugs. No longer your name or your power is exempt from the law. So how do you do that? Well, you gotta hire more deputies. I alluded to this a while ago. The only way you can do that is cut the top 5 salaries. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but being as a leader, it takes sacrifice. Well, at this point, I gotta sacrifice my pay. I gotta sacrifice the chief's pay, the chief patrol, the chief civil. Those are the guys that are wanting to be the leaders at the sheriff's department. It comes with a price. It's not a fancy decision. It's not a decision that's liked by a lot. But at the end of the day, it's the only way that we can maintain, that way we can give the deputies a raise and put more deputies on the street to keep people safe in their community by busting it up to 1/6 of the parish, that each one of them can have their part for patrolling them. So,
Thank you. Sheriff Seal.
Would you repeat it again, Lawyer Hughes?
Yes. What are your top priorities for the Washington Parish Sheriff's Office, and how do you plan to address and implement those priorities?
Plan to continue to have great training. Training is very, very important. And we have done a good job of having comprehensive training, skills of knowledge to effectively serve and protect the community. Our criminal deputies are all post certified. They must have 496 hours to be able to carry a gun and work our streets. Training is very, very important. And we're going to continue to fight crime. The reason why we have a full jail is because you have a hard-working sheriff's office. If we were not putting people in jail, we wouldn't have so-called overcrowding. But let me tell you this, as long as I'm your sheriff, the criminal that is out there harming you, that's raping your children, that's murdering and hurting folks, we're going to always have room for one more. And we're going to put them there where they belong. You're not going to find a sheriff like some of these guys will say, well, we've got to treat them good. No, we're not going to mistreat anyone, but we're going to put them in jail where they belong. There will always be room for one more in the Washington Parish Jail. Yes, we need a new jail, and hopefully we will get one day. But this sheriff is going to keep it full. And I'm hoping we'll elect some judges that'll get them cleaned out so we can send them off to the penitentiary where they belong. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Smith.
Well, the reality is that the jail is full. We don't have room for one more. We're actually spending $30,000 a month right now to house prisoners in other jurisdictions because we don't have room in the jail. And for 12 years, we've ignored the problem. It's a time bomb waiting over there that we are not addressing. So that is one of my first priorities, to fix it, to start the process, because it is a long-term process. Within the sheriff's department, I think the biggest problem is morale. I think the sheriff and I probably respectfully disagree on the level of training that the deputies provide. I've heard from lots of them. They're dissatisfied with the level of training. Ultimately, training should be continuous and regular. There's lots of updates to the law. We've mentioned the docket, the issue with the dockets here in Washington Parish. The implication for the sheriff's department is that because there's less judges and less jury dates here in Washington Parish, that means that our deputies don't have much margin for error when it comes to preparing a case. They're the ones getting witness statements. They're the ones doing evidence. We've got to be on top of our game in order to make sure that when the case does go to trial, things aren't kicked back. That's part of the issue that the sheriff's department can fix. In terms of the parish, I think the biggest problem is the security situation in Bogalusa. I don't think there's any question that as Bogalusa goes, the parish goes. I've done real world security operations. There's some practical things that we can implement. But in order to do that, we've got to work with the mayor, the city council, the police department, Bogalist. We've got to get stuck in. We can no longer afford a sheriff's department that sits on the sideline at the leadership level and watches it happen. We can get stuck in and we can make a huge difference for the entire parish. Thank you.
Thank you. The next question will be taken by Sheriff Seaman. What step, excuse me, I'm sorry, Mr. Crane, excuse me. Yes, thank you for catching that. Mr. Crane.
All right. As far as the top priorities, obviously crime's on everyone's mind. It's very simple. You have to be proactive every single day. These guys, I tend to agree a lot with what Mr. Smith said. The training has not been on par for several years. I know this personally because I myself have tried on numerous occasions to have deputies and police officers from this parish come to St. Tammany Parish to schools. I know they're there, they're free, and they're out there for these guys. Nobody shows up. With that being said, normally what happens is when a crime occurs, everyone becomes reactive to that crime. You see people flood an area for 2 weeks, trying to just saturate an area where a crime's happening. Nobody's going in these communities prior to the crimes and staying there the whole entire time. You have to have involvement with the communities. Another thing is morale is a huge issue. If you can handle the morale issues in the law enforcement side with patrol, they are the front line. They are the poster children, grown men, whatever, for the sheriff's office. They are out in the public eye every single day. If they won't promote the department they work for, how do you think we're gonna get anybody that wants to come to work there? If they are not happy and they're miserable in the environment they're working in, they're not going to go tell anyone else this is a good place to work. And do the right things for the communities. Thank you.
Thank you.